Microsoft Build Week here on the Azure DevOps Podcast.
The Azure DevOps Podcast is a show for developers and DevOps professionals shipping software using Microsoft technologies. Each show brings you hard-hitting interviews with industry experts, innovating better methods, and sharing success stories. Listen on to learn how to increase quality, ship quickly, and operate well. And now your host, Jeffrey Palermo.
Welcome back to the Azure DevOps Podcast. I'm your host, Jeffrey Palermo, and make sure to go to www.azuredevops.show for past episodes and show notes. And there are so many good episodes. I highly encourage you to listen to our most recent episode on Blazor with Michael Washington. And this week, the Microsoft Build Conference is happening. And this is going to be a short episode, just turning you on to some really, really interesting things that are happening. If you haven't registered for the free and all new virtual Microsoft Build Conference, it's happening tomorrow, May 19th and 20th. If you're listening to this podcast on a Monday, it's happening on a Tuesday. So go there, register. It's going to be live streamed. You can access it. And the agenda is pretty straightforward. What they're going to do is have the morning of Tuesday, they're gonna roll through some speakers. Of course, they'll have keynotes, and then you'll be able to pick which topics that you want. I'm sure they'll be recording everything if you miss something. But all the leaders at Microsoft is going to be there. It's going to be kicked off with Satya Nadella, and there's going to be Amanda Silver, Donovan Brown, Jeff Holland, Julia White, Kayla Cinnamon, Kevin Gaio, Kevin Scott. There's so many. I mean, I could read the roster. Scott Guthrie, Scott Hanselman. There's the pretty long list of Microsoft leaders that are the featured speakers, and there's probably going to be more sessions than you could possibly listen to, even if you tried and dedicated the whole 2 days. But it might be something good for you to put on a separate monitor or listen, even if you're doing other work, just to see if something catches your attention. So if you are not already signed up for the Microsoft Build Conference, you definitely want to do that. Because Microsoft always puts out all kinds of announcements. Now they've already spilled the beans on some things. I mean, there's going to be announcements about all kinds of products. But if you've been following things, what we're all waiting for in the .NET space is more announcements about Blazor. Now the roadmap's been public for a while, but the question is, okay, so what part of it's going to go GA at the Build Conference? What are they going to announce, and which items do they need more time on? So it'll be really interesting. But I wanted to follow up on Blazor because this is one of the tectonic shifts in the Microsoft development space that is going to change everything. And I don't say that lightly. You need to be paying attention to Blazor. Blazor is the new way that we are going to build applications with .NET. There have been a few, key changes, and the key changes don't come but every 10 years. And this is one of those 10-year moments. Okay. It is that big of a deal. This is a once in a decade shift where there was an existing way to do programming for various targets, and now there's a new way. And with Blazor, we're going to be developing for the browser. We're going to be developing for the desktop. We're going to be developing for the iPhone, for Android, for Macintosh, for Linux, for Chromebook. This is the way that we are going to be developing business applications to target anything. Write once, run anywhere. When Java first started way back, 20, 30 years ago, Java's mantra was, hey, write it once and then you can run it anywhere. And then there were some limitations. But now with C# and Blazor, I mean, that's always been a holy grail. Write the code in one way and you can run it on any type of computing device. And now Blazor for business applications is bringing that to us. Now, from a literal sense, for factories and IoT, Internet of Things, these small devices, well, you still can't run Java on the small things. You're still going to have to write C or C++. The Azure Sphere is running a really trimmed down version of Linux, and you still do need to write that code in C. But that's just a shim for sensors and controlling devices, and then calling back up to Azure IoT Hub for messaging throughout the rest of your applications, which can be in C#. But I want to talk about Blazor and what's out there now and what we hope is going to be coming really, really soon. Right now, the released version of Blazor, and I've been fortunate enough to be the architect over some applications. The most recent one was Blazor server side, the released version. We put out a new production application a few weeks ago, and it immediately had a lot of high traffic, so much so that we had to scale out Azure. We scaled up Azure using the scale up feature to the P3, which is the highest you can go before going into the isolated mode, and then we scaled it out. And so it is natively compatible with a web farm scenario. We didn't have to do anything special in order to have Azure automatically scale out the web application into a good number of web server nodes running this Blazor application. And it worked. It worked great. It worked flawlessly, natively compatible with the scale up and the scale out features in Azure. And the base value proposition is that it's an interactive web UI with C#. No more. In order to get a rich, stateful experience in the browser, you don't have to go to JavaScript. JavaScript runs, and it has run on all the browsers, and so there's all these frameworks, React, Vue, Angular, that have come out because we needed a language that could run there. Well, now with C# and with SignalR and the Blazor server-side framework, well, now we're faking it a little bit because all the code is actually running on the server, but it's swapping out little parts of the DOM and keeping a SignalR circuit connected with the server the whole time in order to be able to push things from the server to the client. Now, even with JavaScript SPA frameworks, the JavaScript code needed to refresh and have a ping, have a refresh back to the server. You didn't have a way for the server to push out something to the client and have the client have a truly listening mode, whereas Blazor supports that even now. And we've been in preview for a while, running C# in the browser on WebAssembly. And we hope that comes out soon. We'll see if they announce it at the Build conference or if they need more time, but we're all hopeful about that. And you can run it now in preview status. And that's where you can run your client-side C# directly in the browser using the WebAssembly runtime, which is in all the modern browsers. And because it's real .NET running on WebAssembly, you can reuse that code and libraries from server-side parts of your application. And by the way, a lot of this information is on the Blazor website. Nothing I say is new. It's literally on the Blazor website. But you choose whether to run it in the client or the browsers, because alternatively, you can run that client logic on the server. The client UI events are sent back to the server using SignalR, which is a real-time messaging framework. And then once the execution completes, the required UI changes are sent back to the client and merged into the DOM, into the web page. And it is all web and HTML, so you can use Selenium and other web-based tools. It's built on open web standards, and it doesn't use any browser plugins or code transpilation. That's a fancy word, transpilation. So it's not transpiling over to JavaScript. It is IL running in that WebAssembly runtime. It works on all the modern web browsers, including mobile browsers. And with our production launch a few weeks ago, it worked like a dream on Android and iOS, just natively. And the code running in the browser executes in the same security sandbox as the JavaScript framework. So you can't do anything rogue. And the code executing on the server can do whatever you need to do on the server because it's your server. Okay, you can talk to a database, go to Azure Queues, whatnot. So Also, if you're using controls, you can do interop directly with JavaScript and write that out there. One of the things that we found to be a common pattern was as it was running in the browser, we wanted to know what it was doing. And so what we did is we took our logging statements and we redirected those to the JS interop console.log, because in the browser DevTools, you can just say console.log and you can see things going by in the command window in the F12 DevTools in Chrome. And so what we did is we took all the logging statements on the server and we just made a quick code shim to write all those to the JS interop adapter. And then we could see everything that the application was doing on the client or on the server. We could see that coming in the F12 developer tools in that console, so we could keep tabs on what it was doing. That was a big help. So that's a free tip there. And then the UI components are really getting exciting. We happen to use some, and this is a new startup company that we helped, and they have a really small development team. And so they use a little bit of the Sync Fusion controls, which, by the way, provides a community license for small teams and companies just getting started. We also use some Radzen controls, and those worked out well. They worked really well together. We also used Bootstrap 4 and some long-standing jQuery and JavaScript controls, and it all kind of worked together pretty well. So Blazor is definitely something to watch out for this week at the Build Conference, and you need to be there, and I hope you'll be there, because I certainly will. And we'll see what comes out this week. It's going to be exciting. It's a great time to be a .NET developer. It's a great time to ship software on the Microsoft platform. And so, my friends, until next time, keep shipping.
You've been listening to the Azure DevOps Podcast, a show for developers and DevOps professionals shipping software using Microsoft technologies. Go to www.azuredevops.show for show notes and other episodes. On behalf of your host, Jeffrey Palermo, and our sponsors, thanks for listening, and may God bless you.